Level 1 City Council member, you won 5,312 votes in a local election that most people didn't even know was happening. Your face was on exactly 14 yard signs around town. You ran on fixing potholes and improving the parks. Nobody opposed you. Now you sit in a wood-panelled room every second Tuesday, voting on zoning variances and parking regulations, while 3 retirees watch from folding chairs in the back. This is where it starts. You make $38,000 a year for this position. That's not enough to live on, so you keep your real job selling insurance or teaching high school or managing the hardware store. The council meetings run late. You're exhausted. But you notice something interesting. When developers want to build something, they take council members to lunch. When businesses want permits expedited, they make campaign contributions. When contractors want city work, they suddenly care deeply about youth baseball and sponsor your fundraisers. The rules are fuzzy at this level. A free lunch isn't technically a bribe. A campaign contribution isn't technically a payoff. Everyone does it. The city attorney says it's fine as long as you disclose it. You disclose it. Nobody reads the disclosures. Your first compromise is small. A developer wants to build apartments on a lot zoned for single-family homes. The neighbourhood opposes it. They show up to the meeting with handmade signs. But the developer contributed $2,000 to your campaign. You vote yes. You tell yourself it's because the city needs housing. You tell yourself the neighbours are NIMBYs. You might even believe it. 6 months later, that developer takes you to dinner at a steakhouse you couldn't normally afford. He picks up the check. $400 for 2 people. You disclose it. He mentions another project. You vote yes again. The pattern establishes itself. Level 2. Mayor of a small city. You won this race by 800 votes after spending $60,000 you borrowed from family and raised from local businesses. The salary is $75,000. You finally quit your day job. You hire your nephew as your assistant. Nobody complains. This is a small town. Everyone's related to someone. The power feels different here. You control appointments to boards and commissions. You influence which contractors get city work. You approve department budgets. People want things from you constantly, and they're willing to pay for access. Here's what they don't tell you about being mayor of a town with 30,000 people. The FBI doesn't care. The State Attorney General's office doesn't care. Local media is one reporter who covers 6 towns and mostly rewrites press releases. You could steal $50,000 from the general fund, and the only person who might notice is the finance director who you appointed. Former Ford Heights Mayor Charles Griffin learned this. He used the village general fund as his personal checking account for years. He took between $10,000 and $100,000. He finally got caught and sentenced to 4 years in prison in January, but only after someone filed a complaint. Before that, nothing. Nobody was watching. You're smarter than Griffin. You don't steal directly. You do what Riverdale Mayor Lawrence Jackson did. You control the contracts. A garbage collection company wouldn't play ball, so he didn't renew their contract. He gave it to someone with personal ties instead. He got convicted of perjury and obstruction for lying about it later. But the initial act, that's just politics. That's how business gets done. The money flows differently at this level. Campaign contributions come from contractors who want city work. Legal fees get paid by developers who need zoning changes. Your consulting company that definitely doesn't do any actual consulting bills. Companies that coincidentally win bids for city projects. Everything has a disclosure form. You file them. Nobody reads them. You learn the magic words. I recuse myself from this vote due to a potential conflict of interest. That's what you say when the conflict is too obvious to ignore. But you don't recuse yourself from the preliminary discussions. You don't recuse yourself from steering the committee. You just recuse yourself from the final vote that everyone knows will go the way you want anyway, because 3 other council members owe you favours. Level 3. Mayor of a major city. This is where the game changes completely. You're running a city of 600,000 people with a budget of $6 billion. You have 13,000 employees. You control the police department, the housing authority, the economic development corporation. Billions of dollars flow through systems you oversee. The campaign to get here cost $8 million. Most of it came from real estate developers, construction unions, and businesses that need city permits to operate. They're not donating because they believe in your vision for public transit. They're investing. They expect returns. New York City Mayor Eric Adams understood this perfectly. He got indicted in September 2024 on charges including conspiracy to defraud the United States, wire fraud, soliciting foreign campaign contributions, and accepting bribes. The indictment detailed years of accepting illegal contributions and luxury travel in exchange for official favors. His police commissioner resigned, his school's chancellor resigned, his first deputy mayor resigned, the entire administration collapsed. But here's what's interesting. His indictment was dismissed with prejudice in April 2025. Judge Dale Ho wrote that the court cannot force the Department of Justice to prosecute a defendant. Adams walked away. The case became emblematic of systemic corruption compared to the Tweed era, involving more officials than any New York administration in modern history. And he walked away. That's the power of this level. You're too big to prosecute easily. The cases are complex. The evidence is scattered. The resources required are massive. And sometimes the political will just evaporate. Oakland Mayor Sheng Thao faces federal corruption charges right now involving her partner and a waste management company. Whether those charges stick remains to be seen. Chicago has recorded 1,642 corruption convictions since 1976. The cost? At least $500 million per year. Illinois politicians cost taxpayers $550 million annually in corruption losses. These aren't anomalies. This is the system. But even at this level, you're not untouchable yet. You can still be indicted. You can still be investigated. Federal prosecutors still have jurisdiction. The FBI still considers public corruption its top criminal priority. 334 federal corruption convictions happened in 2023 alone. 80 were local officials. You could be next, unless you climb higher. Level 4, state governor. You control the state budget in the tens of billions, maybe more. You appoint judges, parole board members, regulatory commissioners. You control who gets contracts to build highways, who gets licenses to operate casinos, who gets tax incentives to relocate their business to your state. The campaign cost $40 million. Nobody spends that kind of money without expecting something in return. But here's where everything shifts. You now have something most lower officials don't have: immunity. Not complete immunity, not yet, but enough to make prosecutions significantly harder. You're protected by layers of staff who insulate you from direct contact with anything illegal. You don't personally accept the bribe. Your campaign manager does. You don't personally promise the contract. Your chief of staff does. You just happen to make decisions that benefit the people who donated. Coincidence. The legal definition of corruption has been narrowed so much by Supreme Court decisions that what used to be obviously illegal is now just politics. Buckley versus Valeo in 1976 started the process. Citizens United accelerated it. The court pared back anti-corruption statutes, tacitly accepting that money influencing politics is unavoidable. You operate in that grey zone. Everything is technically legal. Everything has plausible deniability. The FBI still investigates governors. 41 state officials were convicted of corruption in 2023. You could be one of them. But the investigations take years. The case is complex. Federal prosecutors need overwhelming evidence. You have excellent lawyers. You have political allies who can make investigations disappear. You have friendly judges you appointed. The system protects you now in ways it didn't at lower levels. You served 2 terms, 8 years of carefully managed corruption, contracts to donors, appointments to fundraisers, pardons to connected criminals. Nothing provable, nothing prosecutable. You leave office wealthy. Your net worth increased $20 million on a salary of $170,000 per year. Nobody asked how. Level 5, United States Senator. This is where immunity becomes almost absolute. You're one of 100 people who make federal law. You have constitutional protections that governors don't have. The speech or debate clause protects anything you say on the Senate floor from prosecution. You can't be arrested while Congress is in session except for treason, felony, or breach of peace. The interpretation of those exceptions is narrow. You're investigated less because you control the agencies that would investigate you. You sit on oversight committees, you approve budgets for the FBI, the Justice Department. They know this. They tread carefully. The Supreme Court has made it clear that campaign contributions aren't bribes unless there's explicit quid pro quo, an explicit promise of official action in exchange for money. Everything else is just politics. So you take the contributions. Millions of dollars from industries you regulate. Defense contractors, pharmaceutical companies, tech giants, Wall Street firms, they donate. You vote in ways that benefit them. But there's no explicit promise, no smoking gun. Just a pattern that everyone understands but nobody can prosecute. You've climbed high enough that the machine protects itself. Other senators won't investigate you because they're doing the same thing. The Justice Department won't prosecute without ironclad evidence because failed prosecutions against sitting senators are career-ending for prosecutors. The media reports on it, but nothing happens. The public gets outraged, then forgets. You serve 3 terms, 18 years. You leave the Senate and immediately become a lobbyist making $2 million per year from the same companies you regulated. It's legal. It's expected. It's the system working exactly as designed. Level 6, the presidency. Absolute immunity for official acts. The Supreme Court ruled on this in Trump versus United States in 2024. Core constitutional powers: completely immune from criminal prosecution, pardon power, removing executive branch officials, investigating and prosecuting crimes, all immune. Other official acts: presumptive immunity. The bar for prosecution is nearly impossible to clear. You control the Justice Department. You appoint the Attorney General. You can fire anyone investigating you. You can pardon anyone who might testify against you. You have an entire administration insulating you from consequences. The only real accountability left is impeachment, which requires a 2/3 Senate vote. That's not happening unless your own party turns on you, which means you'd need to do something so egregious that 67 senators from both parties agree you need to be removed. History shows that threshold is almost impossible to reach. Richard Nixon resigned before impeachment. Bill Clinton was impeached, but not removed. Donald Trump was impeached twice, not removed either time. The system isn't designed to hold presidents accountable. It's designed to protect them. You can commit crimes as long as they're connected to official duties. The definition of official duties is broad and interpreted favorably. Elections are supposed to be the check on presidential power. But if you control the narrative, if you have enough supporters, if you've built enough loyalty, elections don't remove you either. You serve your term. Maybe 2. You leave office with absolute immunity for everything you did as president. No prosecution, no accountability, no consequences. You write a memoir. You give speeches for $500,000 each. You live in luxury funded by the same corruption that got you there. The ladder doesn't go higher than this. This is the top. Complete immunity. Complete power. Complete protection from the laws that govern everyone else. The system was supposed to prevent this: checks and balances, separation of powers, a government of laws, not men. But the ladder proves otherwise. Every rung up brings more protection, more immunity, more insulation from consequences. By the time you reach the top, you're untouchable. And somewhere at the bottom, someone just filed an application for city council. They think they're going to change things. They think they're different. They always do. The cycle doesn't break, it can't. The system isn't broken, it's working exactly as designed. Every level teaches you that rules are for other people. That money isn't corruption, it's just politics. That immunity isn't a bug. It's a feature protecting those who need protection least. You started wanting to fix potholes. You end up untouchable, wealthy, immune from the laws you helped write. And the really twisted part? You probably still think you're one of the good guys. You tell yourself everyone does it. You tell yourself you had no choice. You tell yourself the system made you this way. Maybe that's even true, but someone else just won their city council race on a platform of change and transparency. They're sitting in that wood-panelled room right now, casting their first votes. A developer just invited them to lunch. They're thinking about saying yes, just this once, just to build relationships, just because everyone does it. The ladder is always there, waiting.